And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanti White. To the right of me.
T.
And Nari's behind the glass holding us all down. But in studio right now with us is Mr. Andy from the Greater New Orleans Foundation. And we're going to talk all things building a brighter future for our region. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
You're doing well. You look well.
The family's all right? You're okay?
The family's good, yeah.
Good.
I don't know if y'all saw, but Mr. Andy was also dancing with us, while we were bringing the show.
Andy got a little rhythm.
I'm trying,
He got his honorary brother's card, man. So, Andy, first of all, for people who may not know, give our listening audience, especially if you've been here before, and thank you for your contributions and your relationship here with this little black radio station. Who is Andy Kopplin, and what is the Greater New Orleans Foundation and their mission?
Yeah, we're the community foundation for the 13 parishes of Southeast Louisiana, right? But headquartered right here in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. We started out 101 years ago, as the community chest back in 1923, where folks would raise money to help, get through the Depression, get through the wars. And in 1983, we became the Greater New Orleans Foundation, kind of the form that we take today. I think the biggest thing that has transformed our institution was actually Hurricane Katrina. We were kind of helping people be their best philanthropist selves up until that point. But at that point, we really started to reach out to the community and run programs. So we had a $23 million affordable housing program we created after Katrina. Councilmember Thomas remembers the Unified New Orleans plan that tried to bring everybody together. That was funded through us. And we've been doing a lot of work to try to make sure we're reaching all parts of the community. So our mission is our vision is really to create a thriving, just, and sustainable region. And we try to do that by advancing charitable giving. We just celebrated Black Philanthropy Month. I saw the Tribune outside here in the office, where there's a big picture about that as well. We had held our fifth celebration of Black philanthropy right here on Xavier's campus, honoring Dr. Norman C. Francis. And we set up a racial equity fund in his honor. We're raising money for that to make sure that we can help Black-led groups that are on the front lines of the civil rights fight and building wealth for the Black community, among other of the many things that we do at the Greater New Orleans Foundation. So it's really, I tell people I got the best job of anybody in the city. I help people.
After us.
After us.
Yeah.
I said third best. But I get to help people make our city better, and that's a real blessing.
Well, it's always good when you talk to folk when you can hear their love for their work
and what they do.
It comes across, because I think that it's important to love what you do so it doesn't feel like work. Right. But you gave us that brief, the introduction to GNOF. But tell us about the evolution of the organization. You're over 100 years old, like from your start to now. Talk about that evolution.
And the change.
Yeah. Well, look, it's no secret that in 1923, the city of New Orleans was very different and inequitable. There was the middle of Jim Crow, and I think we had, 60, 70 straight white men who were the chairmen of our board, right? There was a moment that Dr. Norman Francis told us about back in the 50s when, in fact, the Greater New Orleans Foundation was getting pressure from different powers that be to not give a grant to the Urban League. And for a year, the Greater New Orleans Foundation, our predecessors, my organization's predecessors, took the Urban League out of the grant-making list. Dr. Francis, when he was, Citizen Francis, he may have been president of Xavier back in 1957, I'm not sure, but he led the charge to change that policy. Yeah. And have great gratitude for him and the civil rights leaders who fought. And the board of directors that we had at that time reversed course and did the right thing, put the Urban League back in that grant. But that just goes to show you that, again, we have not, in our history, been perfect. We've got to acknowledge mistakes that our organization has made. I said that from the podium at our 100th year anniversary, which was back in 2023, that we had obviously come a long way, but we had to acknowledge our history. And some of that history isn't all good.
So acknowledging that history, one of your cornerstones is equity,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Talk about the role that equity plays, especially in this modern day,
Yeah.
as we celebrate 100, but this 21st century Greater New Orleans Foundation. Give us some examples of that.
Right. I think that probably the best example, Councilmember, is the Greater Together Fund for Racial Equity. And so after George Floyd was murdered, one of our colleagues said, well, we were saying, what should we do? So, well, what do we do?
Right.
We raise money and give it away. So we need to create a fund. So we said, we're going to raise $3 million. We're going to give it away over a 3-year period to Black-led organizations who are working on the front lines of civil rights and, again, building wealth for the Black community where we live. And equity is now a core value of the foundation since 2018 when I got there. And it's really central to the grant making that we do. If you look at the discretionary grant making, the stuff that we and our board control, about half the grants are always going to Black-led organizations. We've got a commitment in our training programs to really lift up the talent and build the talent. There's a racial leadership gap, as you all know,
Right.
but we did a study documenting that racial leadership gap in the nonprofit sector and said, look, we've got in our region, 44% of the people in our region are people of color, obviously more than that in the city of New Orleans, but our leadership of nonprofits is less than that. And
But
what can we do to close that gap? And so
it-
we're training folks to be able to take that next leadership
Right.
role of
And
executive
that's
directors
important,
and
but
pushing
if,
it.
but if you don't have donors, you don't have anything to give, right? So talk about that relationship and how did you work with them, especially as the mission started to change,
Yeah,
right?
no, I think
and the role of the donors and what that work is like to get them, because if they're not, if the other philanthropists aren't there to give to the foundation, you can have talk about all the equity and have all the best intentions in the world. You ain't got no money. You don't have a foundation.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, what we are is about giving money away to great organizations, and I think that we got to meet people where they are, and we are familiar with a lot of generous, kind, thoughtful people, but they may not have all of the exposure.
Philanthropy took a hit during COVID. Philanthropy took a hit. There was a study that was done nationally and internationally that talked about philanthropy and philanthropists, right? Fewer people were controlling most of the money, but a whole lot of the money wasn't getting into the pockets to organizations like yours. Talk about that challenge. Is it loosening up a little bit post-COVID? Where are we there?
I think what was interesting is what really hit was right 2020, COVID, people opened their wallets up, actually. Right. George Floyd's murder, people opened their wallets up. Then in 2021, the economy was down, people got over the urgency, and that's when it dropped. It's starting to come back right now, but I think this question of, we got to introduce folks to people that they haven't seen before. So one of our favorite organizations, we have a women's giving circle where women give $1,100 a year, got over 100 of them. We give out a big $100,000 grant every year. Well, some of the organizations that have won are organizations that they had never seen. So we gave First 72 Plus a $5,000 grant a number of years ago when they were first getting started. This is the organization that helps folks returning home from prison get back on their feet. Our Women's Giving Circle gave them a $100,000 transformational grant. And we introduced well over 100 women, most of them who had never heard of First 72, which was formed by a bunch of men who came back from Angola. They didn't know Ben Smith. They didn't know Reverend Ben Smith. They didn't know those folks, but they got to meet him, and that OT changed people's hearts. So it wasn't
Reverend Smith, one of the heroes of our time.
Indeed. And he had a vision. I mean, he would drive his van up to Angola to meet with folks on his own dime, on his own time, to make sure that folks knew that they had a place to come when they got home, so that they got off on the right way, that somebody loved them, somebody cared about them, that was going to make sure that they got, a roof over their head, an ID card, a TWIC card to go to work, a driver's license. They got the things that they needed to get themselves moving forward. And it was that kind of sharing those stories with our funders. That's what brings them to a different vision for how to contribute, because they meet people, they see their work, they see their value, And that's what we're trying to do, to make sure that we change hearts and minds. It's actually the human interaction when they say, okay, I love those people. I love the work that they're doing, and I want to invest in them. And that's, I think, the biggest opportunity that we have to change hearts and minds.
So is there like an event, gala, gathering where the recipients of the donations come together, where the funders can see where their donations are going, how it's impacting the community?
Right. We try to do all those kinds of things. And again, the biggest one most recently that we did was this celebration of Black philanthropy. We honored Dr. Norman C. Francis right here on campus.
That was
right?
my president as a student
Council
here.
member
Yes.
Thomas was there. I appreciate that. And we also announced $150,000 worth of grants to Black-led organizations that are working on that mission, celebrated them, celebrated some of the students from St. Mary's who get scholarships from our organization. They were there in the house. And so we try to make sure, again, that there are great stories of great people doing all kinds of amazing work all over our community, and we want to lift them up. We also wanted to lift up, Black philanthropists, right? Because as you know,
Absolutely.
African Americans in our country give a higher percentage of their wealth away
From Madam
than
C.J.
anybody
Walker
else.
to now.
Yep, exactly. They're given what they've got, and they're given generously. And in New Orleans, we do that better than anybody else. So our community, and our African American community in New Orleans, has statistically been shown to be the most generous in the country, and that's something to say. I mean, that's something we ought to be proud of.
Is there like an application process for folk who maybe wants to get access to the funding opportunities? Is there a way?
Yeah,
the best
we have different grants programs that we always advertise in our newsletter. So if you go to the Greater New Orleans Foundation, gnof.org's website, you can sign up for our newsletter. Every time we're doing a grant application, we put it out there through that website. And we're always trying to help different folks, whether they get a grant or come to our training programs for nonprofits.
Because training programs.
we have our nonprofit leadership and effectiveness training. So we have trainings for executive directors,
Yes, you did.
for
Your
boards of
nonprofit development
directors.
program.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For emerging leaders. And this is the one, again, where we're talking about really focusing and centering equity, making sure that our recruitment is of the future leaders of our organizations and building their talents so that they're the ones who are going to seize those jobs. So we close that racial leadership gap in the nonprofit sector.
So I also see here that you guys also respond to disasters. Can you talk about what GNOF does in the wake of disasters? Everybody talks about Hurricane Katrina, but we've had Ida. We've had a number of hurricanes. What is your role there?
Yeah, so I say this all the time. Everybody's got a job, right? The mayor has a job, the council has a job, the police chief has a job, the governor, the president. Our job is to raise money, and then it's to give it away to people on the front lines because, as you know, once the government gears up, they bring the big bucks, they bring the big, resources. But in the short term, it's people to people. It's the nonprofits, the people who are taking each other in. So we raise money and give it to great organizations on the front lines. I'll tell you a story about a place I've fallen in love with. It's New Wine Christian Fellowship in Laplace, right? And Pastor Bernard there had a program going, just like Pastor Berrier in New Orleans East had. And we gave Pastor Berrier at Household of Faith a grant as well. People coming in, getting the supplies that they need, meeting them where they are at that moment.
Pastor and Dale Barry have been doing that for years without a foundation assistance. So it's good to see.
Yeah, so we're helping them now.
Right.
And we helped them after Ida. We helped them after, during the pandemic. We had a program where I believe it was Nike gave us a bunch of shoes, and Pastor Berrier partnered with us to give away tens of thousands of pairs of shoes because that was something somebody had to give, and we wanted to find somebody who could get it to the people who needed it most. And so there's two things I'll tell you about that. So the first thing we do is try to give away the money that people need in the short term to get a roof over their head, to get clothes, to get food, to get supplies. But we always save a little bit to try to make sure that we can make a lasting impact that will make life better in the future. So one of the things that you'll remember is, we had more deaths right after Ida than they did in South Louisiana because we lost power and people died of heat stroke, right? So we did a program with Together Louisiana, the city council and the city have gotten involved called Community Lighthouses, right? Community lighthouses are where we put solar panels and battery storage on churches like Household of Faith, like New Wine Christian Fellowship,
Isn't
like
that
First
over there by
Grace.
Pastor Manning as well? Isn't
Pastor
that one
Man,
of the,
Pastor
one of the
Manning,
places?
yep, the Lutheran Church on Louisiana Avenue, Crossroads in New Orleans East.
Yeah. I just learned about that recently.
yeah.
Yes, I was like, that's why it's
Dr.
perfect.
Miles, that was a great question about response to storms and natural disasters as part of our legacy. I'd known Andy Kopplin for quite some time, his work, especially in state government. But our first real working opportunity where we had to come together was at 3:30 in the morning in West Baton Rouge, over by Sheriff Case's office, where there was several hundred Katrina evacuees who were stranded there, who had come from the dome. That they had been transported. They were taking people out of the dome. And me, Collis Temple, Chuck Bernard, we were there with them. There wasn't any transportation. They didn't have any food. And we were there at 3:30 in the morning calling people to see who could help. Andy was working with the governor's office. We called Andy. I think the governor was maybe visiting one of the shelters in another state. He reached out to Lieutenant Governor Mitch Landrieu, and Andy used his relationships to get them to donate buses to actually get those people off the street, get them something to eat. First of all, me and Chuck Bernard and Collis Temple were able to get food, but Andy and former Lieutenant Governor Landrieu used their relationships to get buses to bring those people to places where they could shelter. And that was our first. That was our first working relationship.
To this community, we appreciate everything that you're doing, and it's so much that you're doing, because on top of that, there's another initiative in terms of workforce development.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about GNOF's role there?
Yeah, again, we think about unjust systems and our focus on equity. We know we got lots of people who've got amazing talent, and for some reason, they're unable to access the system, whether it's a barrier that's been put up historically or the systems just don't work. And so our workforce development program is designed to make sure that we can get disconnected workers connected to training and jobs, get the support they need to get through those, and jobs that pay good wages, have a benefits plan, and a career path. So we started working with healthcare organizations a number of years ago. Said, look, what are you struggling with? They said, we're struggling with a lot of our medical assistants. So we got with Delgado, did a training program, got with nonprofits to help us find the talent, and the talent was in our midst. And guess what? When they went to work with Ochsner and LCMC, New Orleans East Hospital, the retention rate in these jobs was 90%. So what did that tell you? It wasn't the people, because the people showed that they could do it, that they could get, that earn the jobs, keep the jobs, do the good work. It was a system that was holding them back.
It's
and so
always the system.
we're trying to break down that system.
Ain't no sis without a system.
But listen, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Mr. Andy from the Greater New Orleans Foundation. If you have a question that you want to share with Mr. Andy, the number here is 504-582-9422. We're going to go to break. Yeah. But on the other side of the break, we're going to talk all things GNOF and all of these wonderful initiatives and programs.
The future of Congress, the legislative agenda. How do you readjust in these changing times?
Yes.
Yeah.
That and more.
The current political environment. How will that affect the foundation?
Absolutely. WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
Whose station?
Our station.
You know it's our station.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
We have the potential for more scattered showers today. As we get to the afternoon, highs will make it back into those mid-80s. Yesterday, we actually broke a record. And then looking ahead to the next few days, we are tracking chances for rain, but that all depends on what happens with Hurricane Rafael. Right now, the track, though, has shifted more to the south of us, which is some good news. We'll keep you updated on that. For the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up Oscar!
Tired of the impersonal, one-size-fit-all style of banking? You deserve a bank that delivers exceptional service and personalized attention to your needs. That's the Home Bank Standard. Since 1908, Home Bank has been a trusted financial partner for businesses and families because we go the extra mile to help you reach your goals. See for yourself why Home Bank is good for business, good for life. Stop by any New Orleans area location or find out more at home24bank.com. Home Bank, member FDIC.
Experience the heartbeat of New Orleans at the 2024 Treme Creole Gumbo Festival. Join us on November 9th and 10th as we indulge in an array of gumbo offerings crafted by local chefs, each bringing their unique touch to this classic dish. Live performances featuring the Soul Rebels, Brassaholics, Tanya Boyd Cannon, Charmaine Neville Band, and many, many more. Visit us at www.tremegumbofestival.com for more information.
I'm Howard Robertson, creator and CEO of the Play Ode mobile app. Somebody said it takes a village, and Black Radio is the village voice of the Black community. Get in on Play Ode. Entertained, inspired, informed, and engaged. Hear your music on some of America's best radio stations, podcasts, news and info, wherever you go. For Black Radio like it was meant to be, download PLAYODE.
WBOK is pleased to announce the reboot of Crosstown Conversations with host Gene Nathan. A heightened focus on cultural entertainment events and the creators who present them. The new time is now Saturday at noon. Tune into the stories of our exploding creative scene with Gene Nathan on Crosstown Conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryan Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. We are in conversation with Mr. Andy from Greater New Orleans Foundation, and I was sharing with Mr. Andy that his name is hot in the chat right now on WBOK. They were going all the way back to his road home days, so there's like I knew that name sound familiar. So look, yeah, that is Mr. Andy from Greater New Orleans Foundation. But you had some questions for him prior to us.
Especially you guys are an organization that doesn't take political decisions. Y'all don't get involved in politics. But what about this political environment and philanthropy? Are there any concerns there? Because I know everybody was watching the presidential race, the changes in Congress and the changes in our political environment.
Yeah, no, I think that there's no doubt there's been a change, right, in terms of the leadership. As you noted, we're nonpartisan, so we can't be involved in any kind of elections. Right. But as I told our team yesterday, we're still who we are. We still are working to create a thriving, just, and sustainable Southeast Louisiana. We're still trying to make sure that we help advance charitable giving, advance equity, advance the strength of our nonprofits, and kind of lead these transformational community projects that make our world better. That sometimes you're going to get more partnership with government. Sometimes you're going to get less partnership with government. But we're not changing who we are, the people we care about, the work we're trying to do. We're trying to, we're doing a lot of work around helping low-income communities of color better manage stormwater with green infrastructure, investments we make in them. That's not changing. That work is really important to people's health and well-being. We don't have enough tree canopy in our lowest income communities where it's hottest, where they need it the most, where people's energy bills are too high. So we're trying to make sure we do those things. We're trying to make sure we mitigate stormwater flooding, because guess where the flooding is worst? It's in the lowest income communities in our region, and we've got to make sure we help those grassroots folks protect people, and we're not going to change.
I'd like to walk down another road with you. The data center has been one of our contributors for years, and the last study they did on the disparity in wealth and income and the wealth gap and how it's grown tremendously. The gap between whites and African Americans is actually, per capita wealth for African Americans has gotten worse. Per capita wealth for black women, though we celebrate black women for startup, they don't get the resources to stay up. So those gaps have gotten worse. And workforce development is a major issue. We know the conversation with Boeing about they had hoped that they had more qualified people in the area, but that's a deeper dive there. To talk about you guys targeting, working with Dr. Stipe over at Delgado, Dr. Orlando Williams, and others, how do we begin to target, to develop a more competent, more diverse workforce so that, especially through philanthropy and through the foundation, so that tourism, do you want some fries with that shake, isn't the only opportunity here, especially for young black men and women.
Right. And I think you just said it really well. There's an opportunity that we are missing, right? Which is, there are a lot of employers who are hungry for talent, right? And we just talked about this a minute ago, about it's the system and not the talent. We have the talent in our midst, right? But people have been shut out, left behind.
You sound like OT.
And we've got to figure out how to make sure that those systems work for the people that we're worrying about. So again, how do you got to make sure know what the employer needs and design training programs through Delgado, like we did with the healthcare folks, that meet the job qualifications that the employers need. And then we need to go find that talent. But you know what? That talent is often working. They may be working in jobs that don't pay well. So if you're going to put them in school, they got to get a wage supplement, right? They got to get transportation. They got to get childcare. All of those things are required for us to help people make that transition from a lower paying job to a higher paying job. Because people are figuring out how to get by, but they're not thriving. And thriving is what we want them to be.
So would you say that in this 100-year evolution, right, and I've seen it, but I want to hear it from you, that the foundation is really more strategic in terms of how that impacts our community, whether it's donating to nonprofits in critical areas, but also evolving so that you're making sure you're impacting areas of need?
Yeah, no, I think that it's about how you look at it. And I think that we have learned a lot from people who are on the ground doing the work every day. It's like we can spend all of our time fighting crime, or we can try to figure out how to give people a paycheck, hope for the future, a stake in the future. And that's the investments in young people. That's
annually,
the investments
how much would you say you guys give away annually?
So we there's two ways to answer that question. Usually on our report, it's about $30 to $40 million a year. Most of that is donor directed. So we have a lot of people who set up funds with us, and this is where we're trying to reach their hearts and minds.
And let people know what donor directed
Donor directed means the person who set up the fund with us said, give this money to Xavier, give this money to Tulane.
Like Title I money.
Right.
Title I tell you what to do with the money.
Yeah. Or it's my charitable checking account,
right,
and I want to give a grant to the Boys and Girls Club, WBOK's
kind of like
charitable foundation, Give NOLA Day, right? And then there's the discretionary grant making when we go out and raise the money for the Racial Equity Fund, for the LGBTQ Fund, for our disaster response funds. And so depending on the year, that's somewhere between $5 and $10 million that we're directing ourselves, right? Usually through disaster response and these big fundraising efforts. So what we try to do with the money that we control directly is show people the way. These are the great organizations. These are the great organizations that you could invest in too, and inspire them, inform them, engage them. And they say, okay, I just saw this great grant that the foundation gave. to the first 72 plus. I'm going to join them in that. I'm going to give to YEP. YEP was another one of our winners. We helped them expand to New Orleans East Training Grounds, which is out in the New Orleans East Library. I saw you went to the ribbon cutting for that OT.
I've been working with them though since they were in the Corpus Christi.
Yeah, but that group got a $100,000 grant from us to expand to New Orleans East because we want to show folks the way, and that's really what we're trying to do. Is again, educate folks, win them over, hearts and minds, and that they see themselves invested in the success of our whole community. And we truly believe that if everybody is thriving in New Orleans, we're all going to do better. But to get everybody to thrive, you have to look at who's not thriving. You have to look at the income inequality. You have to look at the lack of opportunities. There's a racial disparity in everything that we're working on at the Greater New Orleans Foundation, everything that you all are talking about in this community conversation. How do we close that gap? And so if we focus on closing that gap and make progress, we're going to make progress for our people. If we pretend that gap doesn't exist, then we're going to be focusing on the wrong thing. And so that's part of, what you all are bringing to the conversation through this radio program, what we're trying to change in terms of the way we approach our work.
So, were you going to say something?
No. I just listening on Andy Kopplin, CEO of the Greater New Orleans Foundation, our leading donor in philanthropic
40
agency.
million
100 years.
Yeah. And so listen, if you could leave our viewers or in our listening audience with one key message about the role of the Greater New Orleans Foundation in the region's future, what would that message be?
Yeah, I think we're trying to inspire people to come together, to focus on the ways that everybody, that means all of us, can develop their skills and talents, have the opportunities that they deserve to be their best selves. And if we pull everybody together to work for that future, our community is going to be thriving. But it takes a focus on making sure everybody's part of that conversation, everybody's part of that success, everybody has that opportunity. We're investing in everybody.
Dr. White, how you like that? Pulling everybody together to work for our future.
That sounds like something he need to tell to our president-elect.
Key word was everybody.
Everybody. That sounds like a message.
No doubt about it.
And so what I will say, or what I will ask you is this: is there an email address, a phone number for those who may be listening, whose ear you probably have ringing at this moment? How could they get in touch with you?
Yeah, 598-4663 is our main number. And www.gnof.org is our website. You go there, they'll ask you to sign up for the newsletter. You'll be able to hear from us every other week on the things that we're working on. You'll be able to get in contact. Lots of times there'll be an email address in there. If you want more information, contact this person at the Greater New Orleans Foundation.
And if Miss Linda Lewis with the Lewis Armstrong Family Services wanted to take part in your grant application process, she can do so on the website?
Yes, ma'am.
www.gnof.org.
That's Armstrong Services. That's the Linda Lewis,
yes.
who God uses her own, as well as philanthropy and donors. So Armstrong Family Services. Remember that name.
I will.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You promise to come back with us?
Yes. If you'll have me, I'll come back.
I mean, because you just educated me real quickly. Like, I knew of GNOF and I knew some of the things you guys were doing, but not all of this.
Now you know.
There's levels to this, layers to this. So thank you for being here.
I'm educated by being here. So thank you and your listeners.
It's the best place to be.
Well, it's so nice we had this time together. Just to have a laugh, a sing a song. And before you know it. We gotta say so long. Not the side porch or the back porch, but
the front
what?
porch.
The front porch.
Up next with Grilling and Kimba.
WBOK 1230 a.m.
The station you listen to all day long.
And whose station?
Our station.
You know it's our station.
campus of Xavier University.
Love.
WBOK 1230 AM. Go. An Equity Media Station.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Ohioans are curious about Vice President-elect J.D. Vance's Senate seat. Vance will resign from the Senate before becoming Vice President. Governor Mike DeWine will then appoint his successor, who will serve until December 2026. DeWine hasn't named any candidates yet. A California wildfire near Ventura, fueled by Santa Ana winds, has destroyed homes and forced evacuations. The mountain fire has grown to over 14,000 acres, causing injuries and significant damage. A 41-year-old man in Jackson, Mississippi died on Monday after being buried under hot asphalt due to a hydraulic malfunction while repairing a dump truck. First responders were unable to save him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. And Tyka Nelson, a singer and sister to the late Prince, has passed away at the age of 64. The Minneapolis, Minnesota native passed away on Monday. No other details have been released. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
You're on the front porch with WBOK 1230 AM. Back on the